Hi, I'm Linda Presto. Come listen to me, America's College Coach, on Living the Next Chapter podcast. First of all, it's amazing to be asked that question. I feel so grateful to even be able to have that question come at me. So thank you for that. It's been an amazing journey so far. I think that I would say, the book has been around in process for a long time. So I've really explored a lot of different things. And I think I would tell writers especially, yes, first of all, yes, if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. And be open to how you can do it. So my journey came through, I met publishers through a book competition. And it cost me a little money, and it was definitely a lot of effort, and it was not easy to do the competition. But I did it. And I think taking that one step created all the other steps that came after it. Just the courage to say, well, I might want to enter this. And because I didn't win. That's the point. I didn't win the competition. There were several categories. I won one category, the category for the manuscript itself. But there were several other categories, marketing, other things that you have to do for the book, right? So I didn't know much about any of those. But I learned doing this. I learned so much about all these other things I needed to know about. I had no idea writing a synopsis would be harder than writing the book itself. I now know that. I don't enjoy writing synopses. I found that out, but I did it. I did all these things because I took that one chance and spent a little money on myself. And I took a chance. I put the work in. It took me a while. The process was, even that process was wonderful. I got to meet agents and a publisher. So, and marketing people who market books. And I went into it thinking, well, I'm just going to look at this like school. And so if I don't win, it's okay, because this is like schooling for me. That's how I felt about it. And it was. And then I didn't win, but the publisher really liked the manuscript. So we got to talking, and I ended up with a deal with them anyway, even though I didn't win. So I think that's the key to remembering how it all plays out is nearly as important as the fact that you're making it play out by taking active steps every day. I think that's really important. Just keep moving and keep writing.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone, to the podcast of Living the Next Chapter. I have with me today talking about college coaching, students finding their spot in university, and all that great stuff. Linda, welcome to the podcast. How are you? And we've had our little fun with technology this morning, so I appreciate your patience as we get all set up, and we're all kind of spinning plates and getting all this great technology working for us instead of against us. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. Linda, where are you in the world? Let everybody know where you're at. Yeah.
I live in New Jersey. My whole life, actually, born and bred in New Jersey. So I've had jobs in and around the New Jersey area, and my clientele, though, now with the new technology, speaking of technology, is pretty much national. I have students in Seattle. I have students in California. I can work anywhere now, which is kind of amazing.
It's amazing how small the world is right now, and that we can connect like this. I'm up in Canada. You're in New Jersey. It's great, right? I love it.
It's wonderful. I love it. It's wonderful to be able to connect with people anywhere. I think it's fantastic.
So let everybody in on what you do for students. How do you help students? It's crunch time right now. It's very busy for you. What do you do to help students find the school of their dreams?
Well, yeah, this is a very busy time of year. So I try to help students and parents. I think it's a family event. I think this transition involves the entire family. And so initial meeting, I usually offer like a free consult just to get everybody in the room and on the screen or whichever, and on the same page. because I find that in the process of this, parents and students obviously have different ideas about how they want to get where they're going. Um, just different ideas about, age and experience and things like that makes parents look at the situation much differently than their children. So it can be a fun time, but it is also a little bit sometimes of a frustrating time. So I'm just sort of like the guide. It's like they're on a journey and I just show up. I'm their guide. I show up once or twice a week and what's up? And I check in and we check deadlines and we work together. And sometimes they even argue a little. Well, I told him he should do this, but he's not listening. So we kind of go through the whole, it's a family event, which is one of the reasons I think I love it so much because I step in and it's going on. You can't, no matter what else is going on in the household, this is a big thing going on in their household. And it's filled with all the range of emotions you could have. It's some exciting, wonderful, happy moments and some disappointments and challenging moments. And I get to be there for all of them. So I feel really privileged. So what I try to do is two things. I try to help parents be organized, set goals, stay on track, and their children also to set goals with them and make sure they stay on track. And while doing that, I try to reduce the stress. I try to just make them laugh, tell them funny stories.
But it's a big change because they're leaving home. Maybe they're not going to be in the same state. They could be anywhere, right? And parents saying goodbye to kids. You have the pressure of all that. You have grades and the best school. There's a lot going on. Like having somebody like you come in and help would be a huge asset for any family.
Yeah, I'm in a fortunate position. Most people are quite happy to see me. I'm not I'm not like the tax collector. I'm somebody who's, oh, thank goodness you're here, kind of, it's that kind of a thing. So I really love it. I really enjoy every bit of it. And it's funny. I'm just a process oriented person. We come with certain things. That's mine. That's my DNA. That's my gift. I am process oriented. I can't really do anything without having a little bit of a process in my head first. So how am I going to approach this? What am I going to do? What are the goals? When do I want to have it done? I don't know if that's like a writer brain because you're deadline focused. I'm not sure, but it's definitely my thing. So I think stepping into this kind of work was very natural for me. Even I had one of my clients, I was telling her about it. I'm like, well, I just like process. If I'm going to clean my closet, I got to have a process first. And she goes, wow, way to go, turning your neurosis into a career. And I said, yeah, I guess, I guess that's true.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Why not? It's in my DNA. Might as well use it.
Tips do you have for parents who are looking at their kids going off to school? We'll talk about parents first. What kind of tips do you have for parents as they prepare for their students to leave the home and move off? How do we prepare ourselves?
Yeah, it's hard. It's funny too, because the book came out of my first experience with my own child going off to college. So I am very compassionate to parents because I was so nuts myself. Just kept driving her crazy. Oh, what about this? And don't forget to do that. No, like there was a lot of worry, 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 worry. And my worry brain just was bonkers. And I knew I had to stop bothering her if we were going to get anything done efficiently. So I thought, well, I'm a writer. What do writers do? We write things down. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to write all this stuff down that I'm worried about, that I'm feeling. And I put together a book to give to her when she left. And that's how I handled it. I'm like, I'm just going to put it all down. I had chapters called things like beware of the red cup. Because I don't know about in Canada, but here at college is those red Solo cups. You see them everywhere on Facebook. You don't know what's in them, but you kind of figure. And as a parent, I was worried about all kinds of things. So that was the book I wrote for her, and I gave it to her when I dropped her off. And then on the way home from there, my son was with me. We dropped her off together, and on the way home, my son, who has not asked me for a book, I don't think since the Captain Underpants series. you know, he's not currently an avid reader. He said to me on our drive home, "So you're going to write me a book like that when I go off to college?" And I thought, oh, maybe I'm onto something here. And so, of course, I did. I wrote him a book too. And then I was going to get to a master's program. I was going to get my master's in writing nonfiction. And so I, of course, took all this stuff with me and like a big pile and thought, what can I do with this? And it changed iterations so many times. And I think what I realized in working on it is that it was more for me than it was for them. And because of that, it came quite naturally when I changed the audience to parents. And then it was just, oh, now I can just talk to parents. And that's what happened. And so it's the same sort of ideas. These are the things you'll encounter. These are the things you might be worried about. These are the things you need to get done. And so it is a guide in that way. It definitely sets up, how to do the important things you have to actually do. But it's filled with anecdotes of other people who, including myself, mostly myself, who maybe didn't do them that well. And so there are just some funny stories, some heartwarming stories, some wonderful things that happened during this process. So I want them to know that these are all the crazy things that happen, not just to you, but to everyone.
So, okay, so we talked about like parents saying goodbye to kids. What about kids on their own for the first time? Woohoo!
Oh,
I'm out of the house.
Yeah, I think that's where it came from. I mean, the book, the guide part of the book came quite naturally because I really just was what I was already doing. So I've been doing this about a dozen years. I think it might be 13 now. You lose track. But yeah, I think I was just taking all the things that I normally do when I work with someone, with a family, and I just put them down. I just kind of laid them all out. And then I realized, oh, these could be funny. And I have a story for this and I have a story for that. And that's kind of what happens as you go along. You just start telling them stories of things that happened.
What kind of words of wisdom do you have from them from a mother's heart, but acknowledging a young adult that wants to spread their wings and experience life?
Yeah, and it's actually a battle within them that you're mentioning. And I don't think most people realize. I know they want to get out and woo, I'm out. But they're scared too. Most of them are really worried. They're nervous. Am I going to be able to do it? There's so much apprehension that I think the best thing you could do is just encourage them to get out into their college world, whatever college they choose. You want them in that world as much as they can be, because it's better for them, and it's a good thing. And some of that world is a little scary. I know that it is, but I think it's a dance for parents. It's this: I'm here for you, but I'm not on top of you. And so it's a dance of we step in when we're needed. We have to step back sometimes and let them figure it out. But just, hey, I'm here if you need me. Um, and just sort of this back and forth dance that we learn to do as our children grow up. It's hard.
So there's like so much that you need to learn when you go off to school. I know for me, I didn't know how to do laundry. So
Yeah.
I thought I got this great idea that I would just take my laundry to a service and have them wash my clothes for me. And then I would just come back and, hey, don't have to learn how to do laundry. Someone can do it for me. Until they gave me all my clothes back in a clear bag.
Yep.
And I had to walk through the foyer with my clear bag full of my clean underwear and socks and clothes in front of all my fellow students. And I'm like, okay, well, that was embarrassing. So now I'm just going to go learn how to do laundry because I wouldn't want to repeat that again. So I had to go learn. And I taught myself how to do laundry. And it was a big win. So, you do what you got to do, right? So, yeah. So lesson learned. Do your own laundry. And now I do them quite often. So, yeah.
Yes,
anyway.
it's a lot of learning, and things like that happen all the time. They really do have to learn how to do things, and it's amazing. You don't realize the things they don't know. I think even sometimes as a parent, you don't realize. I mean, they have a lot to learn, so it's scary. But sometimes you don't even realize the things they don't know. Banking was a big thing. I remember when my kids went off, and it was like, well, how do I do this, and how do I take care of this? And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a whole lesson in and of itself, to sit down with your child and say, okay, here's what you need to do. You're going to have a card for this, but here's some money, and here's money for this. Like it's a real balancing act of all degrees. Everything in your life you learn to balance when you go off to college. Really, you learn how to manage your time. You learn, so it's a big learning curve. And it's a wonderful thing though for them. And I think as long as the college they choose, most colleges are quite supportive of their freshmen. They're usually pretty good, and they help them along. And they just have to, kids just have to learn to ask for help. I think that's the biggest challenge, is to get them to ask for the help before things go completely awry. And either call home, ask the parents, or get to somebody at the college and ask them, and start being in the world. And so as a parent, you're almost pushing them away a little bit and formulating a more adult relationship with them. So it's a big transition for everyone.
What is your advice to this question? Who should call first in that first week or two of being away from home? Should the parents call the student, or should the student call the parent? Who makes the first move? Any suggestions on that?
That's a great question. I do, of course, think it depends on the family and the dynamic, which is always different everywhere I go. But I think we should let children lead, because they're really not children at this point, right? They're young adults, and we should let them lead. You want them to know, you want to make it very clear you are there for them. But I mean, you could set it up ahead of time. I think I set it up. It depends on what kind of kid you have, too, because there are kids who will call you every 15 minutes, and there are kids who won't call for the entire semester. So you have to know your kid, I guess, too, and then sort of maybe set it up. I used to tell my kids, I want to hear from you once a week, at least once a week, because they were not ones to call a lot. So I had to set that up. Like, okay, at least once a week, I want to know you're there and everything's okay. We do a check in. But some kids, yeah, you might have to say, okay, I'm not going to talk to you tomorrow unless something major happens. I will talk to you on Friday, or so. You have to sort of. It's really hard. You're guiding them every step of this. You're guiding, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to step back a little. You're going to do this on your own for a couple of days, and then we're going to check in on Friday. Let's do a Zoom on Friday, see how you did, and you could fill me in on what's going on.
Okay, so I need to know what's a mistake that parents make early on that you probably should not do? Anything that we should take off the list? I don't know. There's got to be something.
Hiding in the bushes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, colleges tend to frown on that.
Not a good idea. Yeah.
Well, in all seriousness, I think it starts long before they leave. Because I work with families sometimes 2 years before they go, right? This starts often it starts early in junior year. And for some students, because I'm a tutor also, and I help them plan ahead. So some students I work with from middle school on. So there's a lot of time there, and I think throughout those years there's a lot of preparation, and that's really where it happens. That's really where you set up. That's what I mean about goal setting and really talking to your kids about everything. That's why it was so overwhelming. I had to put it in a book. It seemed like too much. It was too much conversation for my daughter. It's like, okay, I can't talk to you anymore. It's too much. So I think it happens long before, and we do it little bit at a time. Just little things, where you let them go to Target and pick their bedding, or let them, choose something for themselves, or go out and get it on their own. You want to, they're not just involved. It is really theirs. And you're the one who's involved as a parent. And that's hard. That's a hard thing to take. As a parent, you're used to being in control. I'm going to go and I'm going to get you this, and we'll go here. And and you want to be involved, of course. But I think that we have to step back, at least for moments, and let them wade through some of the moments on their own. And of course, they might they might need us. So we give them some time. It's kind of like college searches. I always tell families that they should search separately first and then together, because they're going to look at everything so differently, and they're going to be looking for different things. Parents are going to be looking at the academics, usually the rankings, things that about the college, how long have they been around, what are their core values. These are things parents might look at and consider. Students, not so much. Students are more like, I got to live here. What's that going to be like? Where are the student centers? What kind of food am I going to eat? It's really basic for students. Where am I sleeping? How do I make that what I want it to be? Right? How do I decorate my room? What is my room going to look like? Where am I? How far am I from my classes? The logistics of it really plague students, I think. Like, well, how am I going to do this or how am I going to do that? They're more thinking about those things, and parents are thinking about other things. So together, they usually get a good idea of what that college brings if they're both researching separately and then come together. And I try to fit in when they all come together and give them sort of some input about how those things all fit together for whatever that student particularly wants and is looking for.
So when you're working with family, when do you, as a coach, as a assistant in what your role, when do you start backing out of the relationship? And you guys look like you're good. You don't need me anymore. I'm just gonna back out of the situation and back out of your lives and leave you on your own. How do you determine that as a coach? How do you make that
And I
move?
think, like parents, I'm always slowly backing up.
Okay.
As we do things, we get through things, and I back up, and then we get through the next thing. But I don't really leave. I have students that call me years later. I have students in college that I still work with. Sometimes that first year of college is very challenging, and because I work with them on writing, that's one of the most challenging things about college. Because of that, I think I continue to work with several as they go off to college, and then little by little they kind of get on their own. So some of them need more than others. I'm always slowly backing away, but still there. And I kind of just let them know, I am here if you want to reach out. That's another lesson for them. Okay, you're going away to college, but I'm still here. So if you want me, you can reach out. And some do, and some don't. Some don't need it. Some do. But I think I'm always in that process of leaving a little bit at a time, trying to get them used to life. Here's how you do this on your own. That's just how I teach in general. I'm always like, here's some tools. So when I'm not there, you're not like, what'd she say? Because that happens a lot. What did she say I was supposed to do? So I'm very forthcoming with tools and charts and anything that I think will help them get and stay organized in their process. And even at school, I try to give them tips about, okay, this is what you're going to need when you're there. So you give them all that, and sometimes it's enough, and sometimes it isn't. But either way, I hang around. There are so many parents that I still talk to, I check in with, and really my favorite time of year is spring, early spring, when they all start hearing, and I get random text messages on my phone. I got into Duke. I got into Johns Hopkins. It's a very exciting time, and they're excited, and they include me in that excitement. So it's a lot of fun.
Must be really rewarding to be part of that dynamic and that big change. That's sounds like an interesting time to be involved with them. And now you have the book.
I do.
So that's a big thing, right? Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about this. So who did you have in mind when you were writing the book? Were you writing it for somebody in particular? Take me through that as well.
I think that's a good question. I think it was a combination of those things. Like I said, I thought I was writing it for my children initially, but I wrote it for me. I think I wrote it for me. And so then when I started to change the audience and I started to write for parents, I really made it for them. I think it's really for them. Not that a student couldn't use it, sort of an independent student who wants to do things on his or her own could definitely use it as a guide. I don't know that and it is somewhat funny for them too, because they're going through the same things. But I wrote it more for parents. I think the humor is more directed at parents. and the silly things that kids do sometimes, especially during this process. Kids do some crazy things. Like one of the one of the stories was actually about my nephew, and they were doing college visits. Big part of this is visiting colleges, right? So all parents make, they make plans. We spend money. We give up our vacation to go to Ohio or somewhere that we don't really want to go. So we're in it. We're trying, right? We're in it. And kids are funny because sometimes they just know. Sometimes they just know. They get on a campus, they walk around, they just know. So my brother was visiting colleges with my nephew, and they were driving and driving. And, it was just going different colleges. You make a whole tour of the trips. You can often parents will do that, and so I don't know. They're like on their third stop. They've been in the car for 4 hours, and they pull into Villanova, and my nephew looks out the window for like a minute and says, "Nah, I'm not going to go here." I thought my brother was like, "What? Get out of the car! What's the matter with you? What do you mean?" So there's silly, really silly things happen. They just feel like they know sometimes, but gosh, allow a leg stretch or something. So it's that's really what the book is like. It's stories that I can share from my own experience and from the experiences of others that parents will relate to. I told that story recently at an event I had, and two other people said, "Oh my gosh, my kid did the same thing." And then they told their stories. And so it was cathartic it's really helpful for parents to be able to say, "Oh my gosh, your kid is crazy too." Thank goodness it's not just my kid. The title is the title of the book is "Where's My Wine Glass? Getting Your Kid to College Without Losing Your Mind." A play off of most parents need a little glass of wine to get through it or something.
So tell me about the feedback on the book. Like, you write the book one way, but somebody comes to you and says, "Wow, your book helped me over here." And you're like, "Oh, I didn't even think about writing it that way. That wasn't my intent." But people take what they want from your book. How does that kind of play out? Any examples from that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I did just have that happen. So somebody reviewed my book, and she was not a parent, but a grandparent. And I hadn't really considered, I had considered students. Of course, I had considered parents as my audience. I really hadn't considered grandparents. And she wrote the most lovely review. And she said, "This book is great for independent students who want to do it themselves. Of course, for parents who are trying to help their kids, and for nosy nanas who want to be involved." And I thought, wow, I didn't even think about nosy nanas. That's fantastic. Yay. So yeah, that was surprising and fun. And I'm thrilled if I guess for grandparents, you're remembering your own children, your own trek. And then, yeah, these are your grandkids. It's important. Grandparents know it's a crazy process these days. Even if it wasn't for them, they know that it is today, that it's very competitive, and it's really intense for kids and their parents. So I think grandparents, of course, want to be involved. It's a big thing going on in the family, and they want to help. And I think it would be good for them too. I think they would get a good laugh and some information out of it. That's really the goal: a good laugh and information.
I love when your audience is bigger than you expected.
Yes.
Right? You're writing for one group of people, and then this other group steps up and goes, "You help me too." You're like, "Oh
It's
yeah,
great.
wow, I might have written it differently if I had thought of you, but thank you.
Yes,
That's
but
nice.
I'm
I like
glad
that."
that it reaches you anyway, even though I didn't have right. Usually, you have your audience in your mind as a writer, and you're always thinking about them. You're always thinking about, especially when it's humor. I think because I'm always thinking, will the joke work for that group? So you're always kind of have audience in
Authors,
mind, but I didn't have them in mind, so I'm really happy that it works for them too.
that's awesome. That's really amazing.
Gift.
Yeah, it is. So part of our audience, Linda, is who are listening to us talk about all this great stuff that you've been
Mhm.
doing. Any tips for authors writing their first book ever? Maybe they're starting today and they're listening to you going, well, if Linda can do this, I can do this. What kind of things would you like to say to a new author to kind of stoke that fire and get them writing?
First of all, it's amazing to be asked that question. I feel so grateful to even be able to have that question come at me. So thank you for that. It's been an amazing journey so far. I think that I would say, that the book has been around in process for a long time. So I've really explored a lot of different things. And I think I would tell writers, especially, yes, first of all, yes, if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. And be open to how you can do it. So my journey came through, I met publishers through a book competition. And it cost me a little money, and it was definitely a lot of effort, and it was not easy to do the competition. But I did it. And I think taking that one step created all the other steps that came after it. Just the courage to say, well, I might want to enter this. And because I didn't win. That's the point. I didn't win the competition. There were several categories. I won one category, the category for the manuscript itself. But there were several other categories, marketing, other things that you have to do for the book, right? So I didn't know much about any of those. Uh, but I learned doing this. I learned so much about all these other things I needed to know about. I had no idea writing a synopsis would be harder than writing the book itself. I now know that. I don't enjoy writing synopses. I found that out, but I did it. I did all these things because I took that one chance, and I spent a little money on myself, and I took a chance. I put the work in. It took me a while. The process was, even that process was wonderful. I got to meet agents and a publisher. So, and marketing people who market books. And I went into it thinking, well, I'm just going to look at this like school. And so if I don't win, it's okay, because this is like schooling for me. That's how I felt about it. And it was. And then I didn't win, but the publisher really liked the manuscript. So we got to talking, and I ended up with a deal with them anyway, even though I didn't win. So I think that's the key to remembering how it all plays out isn't nearly as important as the fact that you're making it play out by taking active steps every day. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Just keep moving and keep writing.
Okay, I have a question for you. I've heard people ask this of podcasters where they say, Dave, because you have a podcast, what has happened for you just by being a podcast host? And for me, I could say, well, I got to meet Linda and have a great conversation and laugh about banana pants. But because you are now an author, like for you as an author, because you're an author and because you have a book, what does that feel like?
I think the fact that people will come up and talk to you, just come up and talk to you. And I actually really enjoy that. And I don't think we do a lot of that in society anymore. People are much more hesitant to walk up to a stranger and just start talking, and I've always been like that. I enjoy that. If I'm shopping, I'm talking to the cashier. And if I'm at the bank, I'm talking to the teller. And, I enjoy the personal interaction. And it's like once you've written a book, people just come and talk to you, and they ask you questions. And it's like, wow, all of a sudden people think I'm really smart. It's exciting. I think that's really fun, to be able to interact with people, many more people than I could have without the book. I think that's been a real pleasure for me.
It's like an extension of a business card, in a sense, where you now are, because you have a book and you're published, it's like people then look to you. It's like you kind of move up another level, I guess, as an expert in your area and a go-to person.
It's really been wonderful. And it's funny because I've always resisted that term, expert. I've never felt worthy of that term. And Because I'm a lifelong learner. I never feel like I know very much because there's always so much more to know. And I am an avid reader, so I do keep up with whatever's going on, right? I know if they change the SAT. I know, that if they're forgiving student loans. I know I keep up. I read a lot, so I always know. But I always feel like, well, I don't know everything. There are times that students will tell me something I don't know, or parents will tell me something I don't yet know. So I've always long been a little bit afraid of that title of expert. But I think now it's not that I'm comfortable with it. It's just that I realize it doesn't mean necessarily what I thought it meant. I always thought like, oh gosh, I'm supposed to know everything. I don't know everything. I think expert in for me in this situation and in my field, it just really means I've walked this road several times. I think that's what it means. I have been here several times. I can tell you a lot about this thing you're in right now. I can walk you through it. That's what it means to me anyway. So now I'm a little more comfortable with
So
it.
you have the book, you have your coaching, they kind of go together really well. They really feed each other, and the two of them combined is a good support for each other. And I love that. I love that you've created that for yourself. And just working with these people and
Yes.
and helping them, it must come back to you in some way, because you're giving joy. I'm sure that it comes back to you in some way as well. Can you share about that?
Well, thank you for that. I hope so. It's a joy for me. I can tell you that much. It's a joy for me because when you're doing what you really feel like you're supposed to be doing, when it feels purposeful to you, then that's where you belong. And it's been that way for me since the beginning, really. Really since the beginning. I had a student at the very beginning, one of the first kids I worked with, who he had cancer and he was out his whole junior year, surgeries and treatments and what. So we missed his entire junior year. And then he decided in senior year, he was going to take junior and senior year together. He was going to do both years because he wanted to graduate with his class, and his school wanted to help him do that, and they were very supportive. So he had tutors, and I came in to help him with his college essay because he was also applying to college while he was doing the 2 years. He's an amazing person, and so we worked on his essay together. And he initially wrote his personal statement, which was like 9 pages, and of course, we read that. I read that with him together. And I remember saying to him, okay, so you've gotten all this out. You're telling colleges all this stuff. What if you had to get it into one sentence? What do you really want them to know about this experience that you've lived through? And he thought for a minute and he said, cancer's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I thought my head might have exploded there for a minute. But when I regained my composure, I thought, this is, first of all, I said, well, that's the first line of your essay. I'm sorry, the writer in me snapped up first and said, wow, that's how we're going to start. That's the line. Because who could read that line and not keep reading? I don't know. So that's where we started. But it was more about the fact that this 17-year-old boy took this, what most of us consider just the most terrible thing that could happen, right? Or one of the most terrible things, and found this good in it and found that it shifted his life for the better. And he got something really great out of it. That I thought, well, if I can have any part in helping students achieve that, get to that place, well, I want that. I want to be involved in that if that's something I can be helpful in. And that's really how it got started. I credit him with my business and everything because I just said I have to keep doing this. And it does happen. It happens often actually, where I can tap in, I can help a student get there and tap into something really profound for them, and they figure out who they are. I mean, even just to bear witness to that is exciting, but to be part of it
Yeah.
is very fulfilling.
And you're helping people at the same time. Like you're their resource. You're the one they're looking to. And it's such a trying time for everyone that's involved in the whole process. Everyone is involved in this. There's a lot of emotions baked into all these decisions that have to be made. again, you're moving away from home. There's a lot of stuff going on. So to have somebody like you come in with your heart and your love and care, it's got to mean something really to the families you're helping. You just radiate joy. So it must be fun to work with you. Like, it's got to be a fun experience.
Thank you.
And just what you bring to the table.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm happy that you see it that way, and I do think parents are seeing it that way too. And so I'm really thankful for that. It's funny for writers, since your audience is also writers. I got a bad review from Publishers Weekly, and I thought, oh my gosh, I thought it was that's it, it's over. Forget it. I have to nobody's going to buy my book, right? So that's your first instinct, I think, as a new writer, a new author. You're like, "Oh my god." And it's funny cuz I was considering how to get them to review my book, because how do you even get attention usually from the industry when you're new? It's very hard. I don't know why they reviewed my book. My publisher thought, well, it's kind of amazing they even reviewed it. I said, I guess it is. I wish they had given me a better review. But it's funny. I think what they did was they reviewed it as a guide, simply a guide. They never really mentioned humor. They called it fluff. They said it's a guide, but it has a lot of fluff. And I thought, isn't that funny? Because to me, that was the book. The fluff is the book. It's it's a yeah, there are plenty of guides. Nobody needs another guide to do right, but I see them all the time. I'm in people's houses. They're on the coffee table. You could kill a you could kill a small animal. They're so big, like they're huge books, and they're dry. They're so dry, and I don't know how parents even read them, because they're how could that even be helpful? So I knew when I was doing it, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to do something different. And every time you do something different, you take a risk. And and sometimes people don't get it, what you're trying to do. But I took the risk. And even though Publishers Weekly didn't really seem to get it, I feel like parents are getting it. And that's so important to me. And I realized, well, gosh, yeah, all the other reviews that I'm getting from regular people who are buying and reading the book are really great. And I think, okay, Publishers Weekly, maybe you didn't get it. Maybe you didn't really get what parents need. I did, because I'm with them all the time. So I think, again, for writers, take a chance. I was so fortunate. I work with Woodhull Press publishers on this, and they allowed me to do. Nobody strong armed me. Said you got to change this. You got to make it more like this or more like that. They didn't do that. They let me have my vision for it. And I'm really thankful for that, because this is my vision for it, even if the industry review didn't like it.
I talk about like knowing your audience, like that kind of review. Anyways. Uh, Thank you so much for being part of this today. How do people get in touch with you, Linda? How do we contact you? How do we get more Linda in our life? What do we do? Where do we go?
I would love that. So I have an author website. It's just my name, lindapresto.com. So you can find the book and all the information, my events, excuse me, where I'll be appearing and all that. I have some events coming up. So that'll all be on there, lindapresto.com. I also have a website for the work that I do, the college coaching. My company is called College Coaching with Care. And the website is just collegecoachingwithcare.com. Because that name really says what I'm trying to do, trying to care about people in the process that I'm helping them through. And so they can find me there, or you can email me at linda@collegecoachingwithcare.com. The book is everywhere. The book is on Amazon, Walmart, Target, and I'm trying for as many local bookstores as I can get to, because I want to help the small businesses, and they're always so lovely and willing to help me. So wherever you can find it, grab one. I hope it helps them through the process. I hope it makes them laugh and gives them a hand to hold.
Well, there you go, parents. If you are contemplating the future and your children will be leaving for school, you need someone to hold your hand and tell you that it's going to be all right. This is the person to talk to, Linda Presto, here on the podcast. She will help you. And I fully endorse Linda to help you through this amazing time of your life. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much for having me talk about it and talk about my work. I appreciate it.
Well, there you go. Links in the show notes to all the stuff we've mentioned from Linda. Head over there and click on the links and go let Linda know. Hey, my kids are going to school and I need your help. Reach out to Linda. She can help you. She's amazing. That's awesome. See you in the next episode. Talk soon. Cheers. Well, the podcast is over. Thank you for being a part of this episode. If this is your very first episode, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. You can go back in our catalog. You can see some of the past episodes. But if you want to get a sneak peek of what's coming, you want to jump the line? Yeah, I got something for you. Go to our YouTube channel. Again, links are in the show notes and on our website, livingthenextchapter.com, and you can go to our YouTube channel and get the most recent episode way before everybody else. So we're putting this at the end of the podcast because we don't want to tell everyone. We don't want to have a stampede, But we're having some great conversations over on our YouTube channel. You're invited. You've been here this far. You're the one listening. You are invited to our YouTube channel. Go over there and you can see the most up-to-date episodes in real time. Meet you over there. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.